It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Jackson Williams. In NFL news, the San Francisco 49ers are signing veteran punter Thomas Morstead. Morstead, a 2009 fifth-round pick of the Saints, heads into his 17th season in 2025. In the NBA, the conference finals continue as last night in the East, the Pacers took a 3-1 lead over the Knicks with a 130-121 win in Indianapolis. Tyrese Halliburton leading the way in that one with a triple-double for the Pacers with 32 points, 15 assists, and 12 rebounds. The Western Conference Finals continue tonight as the OKC Thunder look to punch their ticket to the NBA Finals as they head into Game 5 with a 3-1 series lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Tip-off for that game is 7:30 p.m. Nashville Soccer Club back in action tonight as they are in Ohio to take on the Columbus Crew. Kickoff is at 7 p.m., and you can hear Lucas Panzica on the call for that one right here on The Zone starting at 6:45. For our foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. We'll carry the Titans coordinator's press conference. First time we'll hear from Bones Fossil today, the new special teams coordinator. And we'll carry that live on here. Blaine, last show, Lucas was in here with Robert, and as we're exchanging and leaving, I'm entering the studio, they're leaving. Lucas goes, "You wouldn't believe the amount of Levis truthers we've had call in today and be in the chat talking about how this is a competition and he's going to win and you guys got to give him a chance and all this stuff." And I said as we were leaving, and he looked very frustrated, Lucas did, and frustrated and surprised. Yeah. And it was funny because right when we were walking in, Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, who's down at the OTAs, puts out a tweet saying that Will Levis ended practice by throwing a pick six to safety Mark Perry. And I was like, man, if only you would have known that while you were talking to all these Levis truthers. But we have talked about it on our show. And yes, it's a quote-unquote, I always use competition in quotation marks because obviously Cam Ward's got the leg up. But it's not out of the realm of possibility what chance do you actually give that there's a chance that Will Levis could look better and earn that starting job even with a number one overall pick? I mean, like, from your experience, what would you give him that shot? Well, you asked me to be a
genie. I mean, I would have no different opinion. Just because I played doesn't mean I know that information. I mean,
I know, but I had the microphone first, so I get to ask you, and then I'm going to respond.
I have no idea. First of all, let's don't theoretically make decisions. He threw a pick six. What if the receiver ran the wrong route? See?
Yeah.
See, so you're making judgments there without being there. And that's what, in rumors and conjectures about players and what are not true and what's true. So you just don't know that. I have no idea what Will Levis has worked on from last year. I kind of hinted around just because, you kind of put yourself in a bind when you're the first pick, your quarterback, and you're the coach. So you're trying to manage the reps. As he said, it doesn't matter right now as far as the order, which is somewhat true. But in the same sense, he's trying to get Cam the most reps to see if he's actually ready. That's the coach's job because his job and everybody in the organizations really depends on, Cam Ward. So ultimately, he's going to be the starter unless it's just a grave difference between the two at practice and in games once they start having preseason games. So you'll see. And to me, you can't. If he's not ready and you put him out there as the starter, everybody on the team knows that's not right.
Right.
So that you put he better perform on that first go round, or then they're gonna be like, he should have never been out there. Guys gonna say that amongst each other. They're never gonna say it to the public. So and I don't know if that'll be the case or not. But you put yourself, in this day and age, first pick of the draft is always going to be started, whether that's right or wrong, especially with the way that this team is set up, there's no veteran. So it's pretty obvious that he's going to be the guy at some point.
And when you say no veteran, you mean there's no real Joe Flacco kind of veteran.
Yeah.
And maybe Joe Flacco,
like
maybe Gardner Minshew or something like that.
To say, okay, let's, use a couple first games and then after that we'll kind of slowly ease him into it.
Right.
Whether, some quarterbacks are ready or not, we can all look at Bryce Young last year, and then once he said he, came back and played much better after that. So, I'm hoping
Daniel Jones is a good example.
Daniel Jones. I don't know if that's a good
well, maybe not, but
I mean, that's what they're using. So, hey, I'm hoping you invest so much in a quarterback. Unfortunately, you got to know that Cam Ward's probably going to be the guy. What I think, I didn't listen to the callers, so I did not hear them. Here's what I think they were making the case for, because I did hear the first person and I had to take a phone call. Is that I think they were making a case that there's better weapons, better offensive linemen, and that Cam Ward is having a better case to win a certain job. Well, if Will Levis, in their minds, that's what they were saying, he would have had the same situation. He may be able to perform just as well as Cam Ward, or
a different path forward,
right?
Because last year you can make the case. Because I do agree. I think the situation that Cam Ward is walking into, even though I probably wouldn't have said this last year, I do think this is a better situation this year, because I do think, I'm thinking Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, last year at
I'm
the start of camp.
I'm not even thinking that. You know what I'm thinking first? Foremost?
Offensive
Latham
line.
and more.
Yeah.
Protection, without your line, you got to have some weapons, but man, you can make your weapons having solid weapons. You don't have to have great ones. So that's where it starts. But then to the receivers and
that was
tight ends.
Okay, well, Bill Callahan with Latham. Bill Callahan could probably do something here. Brian Callahan and all this stuff. And listen, it's year 2 of Brian Callahan, which is also better for Cam Ward, right? We talk about how the offensive line is better. We talk about how the weapons on paper look deeper and better. But it's really going to be second year Brian Callahan is also a better situation. And I do agree. Cam Ward is walking into a better situation than what Will Levis did last year. And it's going to be up for Cam Ward and really Will Levis both to perform at a certain level, because not only is Will Levis still technically auditioning for maybe a backup role here, he's auditioning for other teams throughout this whole entire process too. And listen, if he were to somehow win this, he earned it, right? You've talked about it. Players know. Those players in that locker room, they know. And if Cam Ward is not earning his spot, which, listen, I don't think either of us are expecting him not to earn it, by the way, but there is a scenario, albeit maybe a little small scenario, but there is a scenario where Will Levis, who is going into year 3, who's been working with Jordan Palmer, may actually look pretty dang good. I know they threw the pick 6. That was more of a joke for Lucas to use, but there is a situation where it can happen. I don't expect it. I believe that it's very small probability that's going to happen, because I think Cam Ward is just that good. I think he was a better prospect coming out, but there is a different jump, right? There is a competition level jump that he's going to have to make that Will Levis has already made, and sometimes that can be a big factor in these decisions.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head for me, is that Will Levis, be it good experience, bad experience, he's been through and he understands. So this could be the most successful Will Levis we've ever seen this season. You can say what you want to say. Maybe he got in his own head or not. Well, he's still a young player, so maybe he's been able to overcome that now. Let's see. But we all know the fans are going to want to see Cam Ward.
Yeah.
The organization is going to want to see Cam Ward. So there's a lot of factors in it, all that, and it's just a lot to overcome. I'm hoping he plays well, and then he gets an opportunity, and they get to trade him and get some value in preseason, and then get to move on. I don't know if I have a lot of faith in the other guys. I know, the coaches and staff does, but every time I watch them on film, I see one read, look at one guy, and if that guy ain't open, the pocket's so fast and closing on them, they duck and run or get sacked. That's boiled out. That could be, what's the other kid from the 49? Both of them. I just
Yeah, I'm not with Brandon Allen, not with Tim Boyle.
That there makes me a little nervous.
I think there is an opportunity with the waivers and roster cut down day for them to find a upgrade at backup quarterback over those two guys. And I think right now Will Levis is the best backup quarterback they got.
Of course.
But I do think that if you're going to trade in this scenario, you trade Will Levis, I think you could find maybe someone that gets cut elsewhere that can be better than Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle. Because I'm with you. If for whatever reason, knock on wood, that Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle see the field, oof, that's going to be worse than anything we saw last year, in my opinion. We're going to go to break because we're going to carry the coordinators' press conferences live. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number as we wait for Titans offensive coordinator Nick Holtz, defensive coordinator Dinard Wilson, special teams coordinator John Fassel to address the media on Wednesday at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. We'll carry that live when they hit the podium. Neither of us were able to make it out to practice, so we're just getting some of the reports and things in right now. But according to Teron Davenport, he says that no sign of Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Tyler Lockett, or Kevin Zeitler, L'Jarius Sneed, Lloyd Cushenberry were not seen, but he had them on a separate line for doing rehab work. Traylon Burks, Kevin Winston Jr., Khalil Mullins did do some side work as well. So,
Mullins.
Yeah, Mullins
is the running back, right?
Yeah, Mullins. I cannot remember what Brian Callahan said about Mullins, what his injury is, but he is not ready to rock and roll right now, which is not good for someone that is a 7th-round pick because, especially with Julius Chestnut getting some work in, specifically in these 7-on-7s with Cam Ward. So, I mean, again, doesn't mean much right now, but if this is an injury that prolongs, every missed opportunity for a young player is an opportunity for someone else.
Absolutely. Especially this guy's supposed to bring the hammer. We all watched him on tape, man. I mean, I don't know what he rushed for 800 yards, and he probably didn't get as many carries as most. Might have been 600. I don't know what it was, but he brings a load. He is hard to tackle, converted linebacker. I think he's exactly what the Titans need in between Spears and Pollard. So they need a hammer in there, and so I would just be curious, especially being a young player. When you're a young player, you're never supposed to get hurt. And we just you injured. Would you wake up this morning injured? What happened?
We got the clip of what he said about Khalil Mullins.
Not the clip. I found it on.
Okay, well, what is it?
He had core muscle surgery.
Oh, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, that is serious.
Oh, good Lord. That's watch this. Morris Chestnut. Chestnut, man, he may still have a shot, man. Anytime you're talking about a core muscle, the one thing that you got to continue to look, some guys don't have to look like you have an 8-pack, but one thing I will tell you is your 8-pack better be strong. So your core muscle groups are everything that pulls your leg up, back, around, and everything else. So your core is actually an extension of all your success as a football player, and probably most sports. That's a pretty serious injury. I tore my adductus longus, and that's all part of the core. That's kind of more growing, but it then stretched up into my core there my last year. So that's dang, man. Hopefully it wasn't serious. He had surgery.
That's what he says, right? Jackson, core muscle surgery for Khalil Mullins. Now, we don't know when, right? And does anybody say when it will happen?
I'm sure they come back so much faster. So this is the time. He got time to get back. But, man, it just stunts your growth just as a player, as you were talking about, whether it's reps or you're just a little bit behind in your workout sessions. And just some things you can talk through mentally and sit in the meetings. But, man, there's nothing like getting out there doing it.
Well, it looks like if I am to interpret this correctly from Teron, he says that James Proche, Xavier Restrepo, Jaquan Jackson, Chimere DK, Matt Berry, and TJ Sheffield. He just has that as a sentence, but I would imagine because this is the same crew that we saw a couple weeks ago, these are your that was your returners that I just listed. Mm-hmm. James Proche, Xavier Restrepo, Jaquan Jackson, Chimere DK, Matthew Berry, and TJ Sheffield. So
Restrepo wasn't on there, right?
Yeah, he was on there.
Oh, so he's a returner?
Yeah.
We talking about kickoff or punt or both?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say.
See that, and I think last time he was listed as a punt returner, not a kickoff return. Now it doesn't say returner either way, but I would assume that list of names, that's just a misstep by TD not to include what those guys were. But I would say that this is probably punt return if I had to guess.
Okay. All right. This would be vital for that last spot, maybe, or two. I mean, who you putting your money on right now? We can all change.
Yeah.
I'm going Proche.
I'm with you. But I've also heard people talk about Proche that have been there that have people back there in the background. But I would also say
he has experience in this league.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty good player. And I remember watching him at SMU. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, out of that group, I would have to say definitely James Proche. What about you? Jackson,
I'm going Prochet as well because I feel like that's why they brought him in. That's why they sought him out in the offseason. So early on, until I see anything, I would have to have him as the front runner.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that.
You have to lose the job. So then where do all the other ones fit? Because he can also play receiver and do both, I think, punt and kick return.
Yeah. He also, Brian Callahan today did mention J.C. Latham. He basically backed up J.C. Latham's own words and saying that, he played a little bit heavier. He said about halfway point of the season's when it really hit him. He's looking great now. He's transitioning well to the right side. All things that you typically hear anyway at this point. But I do feel like as much as we hear maybe a lot of coach speak this time of year about players, everything is always positive. Everything is always rainbows and sunshines and puppy dogs and all that kind of stuff. I do think there is actual truth to that statement because we've heard J.C. Latham say it, but also because of J.C. Latham, the person, like we talked about yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not surprising. And, I think he's a player that has a good understanding of who he is and what he needs to work on. And then he just goes to work. So I think those are the guys who typically have a lot of success in this league. You'd be amazed if you talk to a guy and say, hey, man, what do you need to work on? And they'll be like, nothing. You'd be like, what? Like it'll be amazing. Or they just don't know what they need to work on. I played okay.
Where does that fall for you? For them,
individually, but sometimes it's just awareness, and then the coaches should be a little more upfront and honest with them. I think some at this level now, people you don't want to hurt feelings and everything else, but you're not hurting feelings if you're just telling them the truth, and it's about your context of how you're conveying the message. Everybody has different personalities. You should understand your position groups and players and how you can get the most out of them. So how you confront them and talk to them and everything else. So I just don't, some people just don't like having hard conversations.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong in under this understanding.
I don't think that's the case with at least this staff, but I mean that does happen with this, generation of players.
Typically get off-season plans from the team, right? Am I correct in that assumption? Like, you come in after OTAs to see where you're kind of at, and they give you stuff you have to work on from your time away.
After
is that
OTAs?
correct? Maybe not OTAs, whenever it is in the off-season, but
or after the season was up?
They give you something to work on, like a homework assignment or something. I've heard coaches speak about it, but I've never really heard a player talk about it.
I don't know what they do now, but
what they do when you were?
We didn't do any of that.
So you were just basically on your own.
Yeah, because I knew what I needed to work on.
Well, that's okay. Well, but what about for the people that didn't know?
I think they were somewhat clueless and came back and were the same player.
Yeah.
And what I was talking about yesterday, that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. You have to continue to evolve your game. There's no part of any player, even let's just use, we were watching NBA last night, Michael Jordan, you didn't think his game didn't evolve and continue to work on his weaknesses? A lot of players, especially pro athletes, run from their weaknesses instead of saying attacking it and make it a strength. So some players just feel like this is what I am, and I've worked all this way to get to here, and this is I need to just keep doing what I've been doing. That's typically not the case.
Well, I mean, you look at all these. Let's just go to wide receivers, but also quarterbacks. I mean, almost everybody now seeks out some expert.
Right.
Well, the best of the best.
Right.
Let's say that. Seek out some expert, like
absolutely.
this Duke Manyweather guy that he does all the offensive line stuff. Quincy Avery, who does quarterbacks. Jordan Palmer, who does quarterbacks. I'm sure there's one for wide receivers out there that I'm not aware of. I know there was a quarterback coach, Sean McAvoy. Like, everybody seeks out these experts and these trainers to try and improve. And listen, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for the elite of the elite, they don't stop just there, right? They take it to another level. It's like Derrick Henry spending $250K on just his body. Like, I don't know what all that entails besides personal trainers, nutritional experts, and all this kind of stuff. And it works out in the end, right? So, like, to me, maybe this is just who I am. If I was a rookie player and all that, and I saw all that go down, even with just Derrick Henry, I'd be like, I'm trying to duplicate what that guy does and tailor it to me. Right. We got the coordinators up at St. Thomas Sports Park, Nick Holtz, right now.
He's an early morning guy. He's here, earlier than some of the coaches, and he gets in early, and he's very detailed and regimented about how he studies. He's got a way he's kind of learned in the past and kind of taken in new information. So we got with him early and he said, hey, can we meet this way and kind of do some things? And then it's been really good for him. It's been good for us too. Good kind of learning some different ways to teach and things like that. So
understanding that there are different players between Will and Cam, is there anything notable about the way that you guys are going about it this time as opposed to last year?
I would say a little bit. I think experience always probably helps all of us, probably helps me, probably helps Brian, everybody going through it with a new system and a new quarterback last year. So there's some subtle changes we've done and some other things we thought we did well last year. So there's probably a healthy balance of that. But yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say it.
How has Cam been just as far as like building that confidence with the O-line, being able to spit that play out, no hesitation and just, develop that confidence from the other guys?
I don't think he's got you meet Cam, he's got that kind of cool, calm confidence. And it kind of comes across, the same guy we kind of met in the pre-draft meetings and on the visits and things like that. It's authentic. It's who he is. So that makes it kind of easy for him to be that same guy. And he goes in there and, if he screws something up, he's the first one to admit it. And he's still got that kind of same cool demeanor. So I think that for him really helps. And it's genuine for the guys. So the guy's always, it's who he is. And it's been that way every day since he's been here.
Handled kind of having his hat in the ring, but maybe some inevitable stuff for a guy that had some struggles and had some disappointment in things.
Will's been great. He's handled kind of, the new situation. He knew at the end of the season that, the QB room wasn't going to stay the exact same and that there was going to be competition. And I give him a lot of credit on two fronts. He went out and he worked his tail off this offseason. He kind of went out to California and really kind of honed in on some things and really was, I would say, diligent and focused in the things he wanted to improve. And I'm sure that comes with experience and having gone through a whole season and saying, okay, this is how it went. Here are the things I can fix. And then attitude-wise, he's a good dude. He's a good teammate. And so there's really been no change in him in that regard. He's kind of good with all the players. And I give him a lot of credit for that because, when you draft number one pick, it's not an easy situation.
How's the interaction been between him and Cam inside the meeting rooms and all?
Good. They're all good teammates, and we made it a point to bring in good people. And I think if there was a problem, it would have already reared its head. Everybody understands the business in the NFL, and there's only one quarterback spot, and they're both fighting for it and doing a good job. So they're supportive of each other, and they help each other out if they see something on tape. And then you got Brandon and Tim in there too. So it's been a good group. They've gone to dinner a handful of times as a quarterback group, and Brian's been really, preaching about how much we're going to kind of be a more connected team, and the quarterbacks have taken that and taken a leadership role with that too.
Cam was saying one of the biggest changes that he's had. Cam was saying one of the biggest changes from college to the pros has been just the half yards.
Yeah.
Working more in the middle and being on time. Mm-hmm. Is that typical for any rookie? And how have you guys helped him, somewhat in that regard?
The field space is very different for, you come from the college and you just feel like the wide field is so far out there, and then the boundary, everybody's, you can get all these boundary pressures all the time, and all the field pressures in the college, you can kind of see them kind of from a mile away. And the NFL, the ball's pretty much in the middle of the field, and they kind of blitz each time. So really it's protection-wise, and then from the route spacing, he's been kind of had to feel the differences of it's always going to be kind of the same throw, which is a little bit easier for the quarterbacks in general. So yeah, and then he's had a bunch of walkthroughs, and we meet with the guys as the rookies, and we kind of meet in the indoor and kind of stand there and not have kind of like a meeting on the grass sometimes, where those guys can then kind of feel the space rather than sitting in a meeting room and just kind of looking at a screen.
You're saying you better not be the lead if you're throwing over the middle that much more.
For sure, absolutely. And then just the kind of the identification, they can hold your shell better, and all the coverages disguises better when the ball's in the middle of the field, so they can kind of cover the same amount of ground.
Go ahead, Nick.
With Cam's confidence, how much of this phase of his development do you want him testing his arm, making some of these taekwondo throws in practice, versus kind of learning the reps of taking what's given for him?
It's always a balance. There's kind of he should be learned by doing. You know what I mean? The experience is the greatest teaching tool we have. So you want him to test it and kind of see what it is. I think he had one yesterday. He tried to fit in a a ball into a real tight window, and I'm sure in college that ball was open and got completed. And yesterday, different results. And he's kind of like, well, I used to do this, that, and kind of sits in the meetings, sees the speed of the game, how quick those windows are, and there's differences. And then there's other ones he still does fit in. So we want him to be aggressive. I think you draft a player like him that has his tape, and you don't want to coach all those really positive aspects out of him and make him a robot. But at the same time, he's got to learn the value of the football too.
Do you see that balance kind of being honed as these practices go on?
Yeah, it's the second day, really against actual people. But he did, today was better than yesterday. So it was obviously one day in. We'll take that progress.
Impressive, I guess, it's been some of your new guys, whether it's Van and Tyler or the three rookies on offense.
I couldn't hear you over the lawn.
I said, what kind of been your early impressions on some of your newcomers, whether it's Van and Tyler or three rookie playmakers on offense?
Van, he is kind of this quiet, steady, kind of everything we had hoped from just a really dependability standpoint. He knows what to do, knows how to do it. I think a guy like him becomes a quarterback's friend and, the offense's friend really quickly because he's played in a system. The Rams stuff was similar, and some of the stuff they did in Atlanta was similar. And then with Arthur last year in Pittsburgh, some of the same passing concepts. So he's got banked reps on those, so that's been really good. Tyler is a kind of a football junkie. He's I've kind of had to tell him to stop texting me all the time, and he's watching all these tapes and sending me these videos and everything else. And it's like, man, we are going on air against we got a bunch of trash cans out there. That's a great play, but sometimes we got to hone it back. And then the three young guys, those guys, it's been really impressive how serious they are about football and how well they take in information. When we were in the pre-draft process, those three guys, there were a lot of guys, but those three in particular really stood out as guys that were smart and could really come in and kind of like handle it a lot. You didn't have to slow it down. Really they could catch up to the veterans pretty quickly, and that's been the case. And so there's a maturity of those three, which is pretty fun. And, we have extra meetings with the rookies in the afternoon, and they're on it, and they got great questions, and that's they're football guys, so it's been awesome.
Ryan said not to read into quarterback order or reps or anywhere.
Yep.
Is having Allen go first most of the time an easy, clever way to steer us off the conversation?
What? We would never do anything like that. Please, I'm insulted. No, there's a couple of things of just, he took the first ones today. He's a veteran guy, played in the system. He gets some of his reps. Really, the number of reps aren't totally what matters. It's the reps that we specifically want to give somebody. So they want to give, hey, you take this play, there's some things you need to work on. So there's some things that we've given specifically to him because they were problem plays last year. You know what I mean? Hey, did we fix this? Did we fix this? This is the first time you're going to see, hey, a nickel blitz. Great. And we don't tell him it's coming, and now he's got a problem for that. So it's a little bit of, some of them are play specific of like, we know, Dinard and we all work together of, hey, they want to see a 3-by-1 formation and they're going to blitz. Okay, we want to do this. And then now we get to kind of get some of the visuals in for those guys. So it's really more play specific than order specific.
But the play specific that you had for Allen, you conveniently put at the front.
Could be whenever you want, Paul. Could be whenever you want.
As you put all that together, the game plan and just the scheme itself, like how much goes into, hey, I want to make sure that this is comfortable and familiar to Cam Wood?
So we've, kind of gone through a lot of Cam's college tape and found some of the things, we'd watch all the years, all the way back to Incarnate Word. So we found a handful of concepts that were similar, that we liked, that he would have an instant kind of comfortability with. So some of those, he gets a handful of those every day, every 2 days, whatever it is. And then we sprinkle in the new ones just because you want him to, have confidence and play fast and those kind of things. So we've been able to mix a little bit and then kind of give him some new stuff every day. And then kind of being under center is new for him too. And kind of the under center play actions and under center movement. So kind of giving him a little bit of what he knows and then a little bit of what he hasn't had.
So what you say is more of finding similar things in your already existing book to what he's done before than
and a little bit of both. And then we took some things that he had and they were cool concepts. And, we've met with, we went down to Miami twice, and met with their coaches, and they kind of showed us some cool stuff, and so there's some kind of stuff all over the place. So we're kind of just going to see what sticks in the end, and it's day 2, so it's not, they're not all in, and it's not all kind of hit the grass yet.
Your 3 top tight ends all seem to have very different skill sets. How do you kind of incorporate what each one does into this offense going forward?
Chig's kind of the speed, kind of all-around player, kind of does all those things, and then really with Gunner and even Tommy O and DMR and Josh, like it's a little bit of finding their roles, but also they've all kind of got to fit in the right spot. So we got to kind of throw them out there, let them kind of sink or swim a little bit in some stuff. We're going to put them in some pass pro situations and see which guys can really handle that, which guys can be the vertical guys, which guys are just kind of underneath guys. So there's a little bit of, the room is deeper than it was last year with the addition of Gunner, and Gunner's a little more versatile. So there's kind of that mix of now all those other guys can kind of find some different jobs to do. So we feel really good about the room where it's at, and then there's been good mixing and matching.
Being a part of the draft process, and especially spend so much time with Cam, was there a moment for you when you left thinking, hey, this could be our guy, could be special?
I know I seem like a really positive person, but I am the eternal pessimist a little bit in the evaluation stage. So, I kind of start off hating them all and hate all the quarterbacks and kind of like them. And as we went, the combine, meeting him for the first time in person, it was like, all right, I really liked the person. I really liked how he talks football, all those other kind of things. And then you left the pro day and you were like, this is going to be a tough guy to say no to. I'm not into all the other, maybe we can draft somebody else, whatever the value is. Looking at a quarterback like him and the way he kind of carried himself and our meetings with him and all those other things, I think the pro day kind of for everybody always like, this is going to be a tough guy to walk away from.
What did you say? Has Traylon, I guess, impressed you with the quickness that he's kind of been back in the field, and what do you need to see as he progresses here in the offseason?
He's just kind of obviously what we need to see get healthy, and he's coming back faster than we thought. He's been great in all the meetings. He's very engaged with everybody, so he's really maximizing what he can do with what he's physically able to do and what he's allowed to do right now. So happy with him, and I think. He sees that there's a lot of competition in the room and that there's some new bodies and everything else, but he's done everything we've asked, no complaints. And, guys get hurt and it's unfortunate, but I think you got to hand him a lot of credit of how he's working to get back and how he's been with the other teammates in the building and been in the meetings and things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, that was Nick Holtz, offensive coordinator. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back to Dinard Wilson and to Bones Fossil and their press conferences here for Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 105 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Stores. 615-737-1045 is the number. And we just heard from Nick Holtz. We're awaiting Dinard Wilson and also Bones Fossil to reach the podium. And when we see them, we'll also switch over to that. There wasn't a lot I found too interesting in the Nick Holtz stuff. I thought it was interesting that they, of course, brought up the experience helps even the coaches in their approach with these quarterbacks. So, again, we talked about this at the top of the show, that obviously Brian Callahan being in year 2 as a head coach is also a benefit for Levis that he didn't have last year. He didn't have an experienced head coach. He had a first-time play caller. He had a first-time offensive coordinator. Like, those are things that, besides his own play and the play of his offensive line and maybe the lack of quality weapons, those were the situation that he was in, and they recognize this. This is a little bit of a different approach that they're taking with all the quarterbacks this year than they did last year. I don't know what it will mean for success or for Cam Ward, Will Levis, or anything, but I did find that interesting because that is something that we talked about just before Nick Holtz went on the air.
Well, just on a personal level, it's kind of with the things that kind of stand out to me and not necessarily big picture. And that was always when he talked about the players. He talked about, Jefferson's kind of that dependable guy.
Quiet.
Quiet,
quiet, steady, dependable.
Yeah, anybody who knows him knows that's who he is, unless he's being close to you. And then he talked about Tyler Lockett just texting him all the time, and he's a football junkie. So I love that part.
I think we need here's what I got planned. Okay, we need this is a charity event. So for charity events, we just need a sponsor. So if you're a sponsor out there listening, here's a charity event. You and Tyler Lockett just breaking down film together.
Oh,
I'll host. We'll pull some clips up. We'll break down some film because he's a football junkie. So that he's probably would. You two would hit it off.
Oh man, I love Tyler Lockett too, man. Yeah. I remember him at Kansas State, man. He was more known for his return ability. He's definitely a good receiver, so he's proven that in the league. And then he talked about the guys. I guess more so the guys that were drafted there on the offensive side of the ball, the receivers. I guess he was mentioning, how they were smart, mature, definitely, guys who put in the work and feel like they're, not behind and, because they're young players, they feel like they're right there in the mix and understanding everything and have great questions. So that's always good. A lot of times, some people get nervous about, asking questions and think, it's a dumb question. And, obviously they feel really comfortable in what they're asking. So that's always a good thing, too, as well.
Because we talked about that, the asking of why, the asking of questions, seeking out answers when you don't know them. It's something it's real hard for any generation, really, and especially generation of young men to do of any caliber of work that you're going to do. Not just football players, but it's like that in any kind of business. How many times in your own business, put in your own life for our listeners, that you've seen an employee not be able to do, not ask why, and then they're bugging everybody else around them for the answer because they didn't pay attention or they didn't have the confidence to ask the why. Bones Fossil is up at the podium, so we're going to go to him right now.
With a new kicker and a new punter.
It's a good question. I think at the end of the season, in Dallas, all of our contracts were up. And Coach Callahan, I didn't know real well, but I had a chance to talk to him as soon as my contract expired about possibly coming here. And I think the attraction was a new staff, obviously 1 year into it, a young team. I think Nashville was always a destination that sounded like it would be good for my family. I got a wife and 3 kids. And Coach Callahan really called me, talked to me, recruited me, offered me the job. And I feel like it would be a great spot for myself professionally and for my family personally. And so we did it.
You start from zero, or do you look at some of the problems that have been here the last couple of years? Because it seems like some of that stuff maybe is ingrained with some of the people you're inheriting.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's all about, when we got here, what it is right now and the players we got. I watched a little bit of tape, last year just to get a little feel for the players, but I didn't want to watch too much, to be honest with you, because I wanted all of them to fairly have a clean slate. And I wanted the work that I put in with them to be their evaluation and kind of their judgment on how I felt about them as players. Because every coach sometimes asks players to do different things. So I didn't want anything that I saw on tape to be held against them that maybe is something that I wouldn't do. So it's a fresh start for me. It's a fresh start for them. And whatever's happened in the past, good or bad, doesn't matter. So I'm excited about whatever is to come.
It's been a long field goal occasionally. It seems like this team has had lots of problems making game-changing plays on special teams, like blocking a kick or returning something for a touchdown. What are kind of the keys to being able to make those types of plays that change games?
I think it's a really good question. I think there's a couple of things. One is you can't ever force it. That's what I've learned, because there's been sometimes I try to force it, a big play, and it backfires. But I think the players have to be allowed, I don't know if that's the right word, encouraged to be able to kind of go for it, where there's not a fear of a penalty or a mistake or an approach that's kind of conservative. You know, and there's a danger with that sometimes too, but I think for players to make plays, whether it's, blocking kicks or having big returns or making big tackles with takeaways, there has to be an element of freedom without the fear of the consequence from whoever it might be, teammates, coaches, front office, whatever it is. And that's kind of my experience is if you give them a little bit of freedom without the fear of whatever a mistake might incur, I think you reap some rewards from that.
Are there core traits you look for trying to identify your type of special teams player?
Yeah, I love that question too, because I've been asked that a lot. And I used to have an answer that was maybe true or not, but I don't think I have an answer for that. Because I've had big guys that don't run very well be really good on teams. I've had small guys that you think would be overpowered that are really good on teams. So I think on special teams, I've learned that success from a player can come in all shapes, sizes, speeds, abilities, and it's my job to figure out what their strengths are and put them in positions or matchups that favors what their strengths are and not really concern myself with the weaknesses, because I think everybody's got both. I think the best players have weaknesses and, the lesser players have strength, and I think that might sound like coach speak, but I really look hard at, what a player does good and pick the right matchups and ask them to do what I think they can do at the positions that would lead to success.
Yeah, you good. How do you kind of describe your own energy and sort of the style you bring to your special team?
Yeah, I've always been hesitant to kind of answer that because I don't know what, I kind of know, but I don't really want to answer for what my style is. I think I try to keep things really simple. I try to make special teams something that players want to do by really encouraging hard work, not talking to them about, what a contract or the money or the length of the career could look like, because I think that's a little bit artificial. I try to really encourage them to create a role for themselves on teams, especially young guys. So it's a hard question for me to answer because I don't feel comfortable answering kind of what somebody else's player's evaluation of me might be.
What do you want your unit to be known for?
Relentless, with a little wild man in it. Because I think on special teams there's some of that where if you try to be real conservative or real perfect or real scripted or real schemed, I think that prohibits a little bit of the flair that comes with special teams, which is running and hitting and chasing and finishing. So that's what I would love for us to be known for. Not the schematics, not even all the big play highlights. It's just the consistent motor and relentlessness and a little bit of wild man.
You've been known for maybe having a little trickery, having a little imagination on special teams. How much leeway you think Brian's going to give you here?
I'm sure we haven't talked about that a lot. I feel like that's a little bit of been a reputation with the trickery and all that, but I don't like to be known for that, to be honest with you. I think that's part of the game on special teams, but if I would rather be known for something, it would be a really solid and sound special teams unit that goes nuts out there.
As you go through and evaluate the returners, what are some of the core things that you look for, and what are some of the things that you've seen before that were successful?
Yeah, good call. The punt returner, the number one is the ability to track and catch the football. And then I think there's something that you can see on tape, but you can't coach, which is the returner's ability to see a return unfold and run it and hit it where that is. Because a lot of times the big returns, and I was fortunate to have Turpin the last 3 years, a lot of times the big returns hit where you didn't exactly anticipate them or draw them up. So a returner's vision to kind of, okay, here's the idea, but this isn't demanded where you got to go because it just might not unfold that way. So, but the ball skills is number one for punt return catching, and then a vision is a huge part, which I can't do a lot of, but I can give them the freedom to go where they see it. And then kick return used to be not a big ball skill job, but a good tackle breaking job, where I feel like now with the rules, the ability for a kick returner to track the football and catch harder balls, which you're going to see a lot more this year than I think even we did last year. The ball tracking on kickoff returners is going to be huge. So you don't just put back there your normal big back that can run vertical and tackle break. He's got to be able to punt return, track balls, and catch dirty balls out of the sky, and then have the courage to run it, 10 guys coming at you on kickoff, which is a big part. So punt return, I would say ball catching and vision. Kick return, I would say ball catching and courage.
What are your impressions of Sly so far?
All right, we have to go to commercial break. When we come back, we'll hear from John Fassel if he's still there, or Dinard Wilson if he's back at the podium. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
If I felt different, I probably wouldn't say it anyways, but I wouldn't elaborate like I will. I think, he's known for his power, but over the last, couple of weeks, he's here every day. He's a gym rat, and I think his accuracy has impressed me more than I anticipated, along with the big leg. So as far as competition, I haven't heard or been notified of anything like that. But right now it's just all the eggs are in his basket from my perspective. And I just love working with him on honing his game and trying to get him to have the best year he's had, like Hecker and like Morgan.
You imagine having some say in the last 5 guys on the roster. Last I know you don't want the past, but last year there was not an emphasis on special teams skill at the bottom of the roster, and I imagine that's very important.
Yeah, I think that's always important. I can't speak for last year. I'm sure there probably was a little bit of that. I think every team, considers the last couple of roster spots. But as far as the say, I think everywhere I've been, I haven't worried about that. I feel like every place has been collaborative, like on, this guy's not a starting linebacker or starting safety. How do they perform on special teams? If there's a tie to break, maybe that comes into play. But I always felt like I've been heard, even though I maybe don't need to be. And I feel like this will be the same, with my so far relationship with Coach Callahan and, Mike Borgonzi and those guys. I think we'll all collaborate on all those things. I look forward to it.
This team has the number one spot in the waiver claim and all. Do you kind of keep your eye peeled on the waiver wire, or maybe even make suggestions if a good special teams guy pops on there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I definitely have my eye on it because I've always been interested on who's getting let go and why and how could they perform for us. So I know my job isn't to see a guy cut and go in and say, hey, we need this guy. But I think so far it's been a great collaboration, whether it's the draft, whether it's been a couple of guys we've claimed that we've all talked about where we see this guy and what do you think? And I might say whatever I think, and the team does what they want to do, and I trust it. And I think having that one claim is a huge advantage. Probably better than having the first pick in the draft is having the first pick, in the claiming. So I'm excited to see how the whole roster unfolds, and I like the prospects of who we got, to be honest with you.
What's allowed Johnny Hecker to stay effective, for a number of years now, and I guess I should ask how his arm is looking. So far.
Yeah, I know how his arm is. That's always going to be good. But I think what's kept him in the league for, 13, going on 14 years now, is his athleticism. He's, 6'5", 240 pounds, and I had him my first 8 years with the Rams. And then the past 5 years, we've been in different places, but to reunite with him has been awesome. And I feel like with Johnny, there's a little bit of trying to get back to some roots with him because he's able to do so many things. the focus has kind of been honing in on just one or two things because he's got such a good bag. So it's been great working with him again. He still got it, arguably better than ever. And I look forward to getting back with him. But his athleticism is different, which I think has allowed him to stay successful in the league.
Great to meet
Yeah,
you.
okay. Great, guys.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Look forward to working with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
It is 2:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams, Titans coordinator, speaking at the podium now, so I'm going to stop yapping, and we'll get you right to him. For our foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. Dinard Wilson's up at the podium at St. Thomas Sports Park, and we're going to go right there.
And he's about the team. He's about being the best version of himself for the team. And you see it every day. You see the passion he has. And, you know, I hope he just keeps growing and growing into the position. And, you know, the rewards will come because he's going to put the time in to get it right.
To give Arden a run for his money as far as being a guy you hear first before you see him?
He probably is. You know, it's funny. Arden has been kind of a little bit dialed back as of right now. You know, to speak of Arden, I love where he's at right now. He's taken a leadership position with the people in the group. I think he's maturing on and off the field, and you just see it every day. It's like, you know, we talk about each one teach one, and he's one of the first guys that's teaching the young guys how to be better, what to do, you know, the tricks of the trade, things he's messed up throughout his career. So where Arden's at right now, and I love where he is, he's still loud, but Femi is a little bit obnoxious with his communication.
Brian's talking about philosophically shifting toward getting a little bit bigger on the edge. Just kind of what was the motivation for that, and why do you think that?
It's a big man game. And, you know, in order to play in this game, you gotta crush the pocket, condense the pocket, you gotta collapse the pocket. You know, you have elite pass rushers in the National Football League. They get paid a lot of money, but if you watch throughout the course of the playoffs and, you know, during the Super Bowl, the guys that can collapse the pocket, that can knock it back into A and B gaps and restrict it off the edge was the guys that was having success. It's no different than when you looked at Verse coming out last year and the way he produced for the Rams last year. So our intentions is to be more direct with the way we rush, have a more balanced approach, no step-up lanes, getting everybody to work as one up front. And we've have a hell of a start of doing that, doing out this OTAs in phase 1 and phase 2.
You envision Draymond Jones kind of playing a hybrid role, depending on if you're giving a 4-3 or 3-4 look to the offense? Or is he a guy that can kind of fill multiple spots?
Yeah, Draymond, he could play up and down the line. Obviously, I wouldn't put him at the nose tackle position unless it was a pass pass down where he can win. But he can play the 3 technique. He can play the 5. He's played a 4-eye. He's done it all. He's played on the edge. He's a stout man. He's a powerful guy. Everything that I thought about when I looked at him on film, you see it every day. The way he conducts his work, the way he goes about his business. He's been another guy that's been a catalyst of trying to develop these young guys to be better football players. So just like talk about Arden Key, Draymond has been outstanding with grabbing Jalen Hurd, been outstanding with getting Ali Gay and trying to teach these guys the tools of the trade because they've been in the fire. So I love where he's at. He can play multiple positions. He's another guy that's smart, intelligent, big man that can knock the pocket back. So we'll put him in positions to win as we start the game plan versus teams.
Is the position next to Cody, is that wide open right now? And I guess if so, what are you looking at? What do you want to see?
It's extremely wide open. First of all, great addition getting Cody. He's a leader. He's a guy that can orchestrate the defense. He's ahead of it. He studies. He's smart. Love that we have him. But in terms of the other position, it's kind of everybody's getting an opportunity. We're rotating them. Cedric has played some Mike, have put Cody at the wheel a little bit when Ced's in there. James has been in there. Anthony, all the guys that we have played. And, right now they're getting a feel for the defense, understanding what they're supposed to be doing. But when the pads come on, they'll separate themselves, and the best man's going to play. And then also we talked about position flexibility. Some guys can do things better than others. So there's always a chance of first and second down having players out there. You can have third down, dime linebacker, whatever it may be. But the competition is wide open, just like the DB, the young guys we talked about in the DB room. And what it's going to do is going to make us better from the bottom up. Organizations, they strive when it's built from the bottom up, not top down. And, going through last year, at the end of the year, when we kind of fell off a little bit, the depth wasn't there. Right now, we got young guys that we're creating depth. Some guys have played. So I'm excited about the nucleus and how we're going to build it from the bottom up. And these guys are giving everything they have, and love the work and the effort that they're putting in right now.
Look back at last season, what are some areas going into this offseason you said we got to be better here, and what are some ways you can already start improving?
First and foremost, when you look back at last season, the number one thing that hurt us was penalties. If you look at the red zone percentage, you look at third down, like as I did a deep dive into those areas, we got penalties that kept us on the field. There were so many times we were in the red zone on third down, we should have been off, and it was illegal contact. It was pass interference. They gave a team another set of downs to go down there. So the first thing is about penalties. But why do penalties happen? Bad eyes, bad techniques, fundamentals, not getting a line and playing position and leverage and putting your body where you're supposed to be. So it's all encompassing. I think that the penalties is the number one thing. We still have to tackle well. We have to be better in our run fits. We have to be better at shrinking the edges, right? A lot of the plays came, because we didn't set the edge with force and restrict it, make teams run in a phone booth. So there's so many areas that we have to get better at. The good thing about an off season is you can look at yourself, and then you can also look at the scheme and how can you correct the scheme, what's good about the scheme, and how do we tweak the scheme to fit the players that we have. So I think that we have a big picture view of what needs to be done. We've corrected some things that we've been teaching. I'm excited about the 2 new coaches that we have on board. They're outstanding coaches, fundamentally, technique, and the coaches that was already here. So, we have an idea of what we want to do. We know the direction in which we want to go. I know I'm going to call the games a little bit differently than I did last year because, you learn by doing. And when you trial by fire, you figure out, what really works and what doesn't. And our biggest thing is putting these guys in position for them to have their best football ahead of them. So if that's putting Sweat as a zero nose, if that's, putting Jeff in different positions, we're going to do that for the team. And, we got a whole big picture view of where we need to go.
Your job obviously is to build the defense first and foremost, but have there been times out here where Brian will let you turn something loose and see how Cam handles it in terms of responding to what he sees on the field from you?
Well, it's been 2 days, and there's no restrictions on what we install, but it is an install progression, right? I can't throw the kitchen sink at them when our players don't know the basic fundamentals, and the first opportunity they had to compete against one another was yesterday. You know, I'm looking at like the young corners. They haven't played live football since their last college game. You know, we can do all the drill work and go against each other, but Cam has done an excellent job. One thing that I see about Cam, you know, everybody sees his leadership and his confidence, but he can see the whole field. He has an innate ability to find the open receivers. We're not going to be limited in what we do. We play multiple coverages. We have multiple pressures. We're going to throw it at them and, you know, daily, you know, doing our daily installs, and he's going to respond. He's been responding all his career, and he's excited to have him.
How did you grade leadership for your unit last year? And out of that, how much are you enjoying these opportunities that are created out of this new offseason?
Well, I think last year the leadership can always be better. You know, I think that as they look back and we looked back at ourselves, some guys had self-reflections on how could they help other players. You know, we talk about leading by example is not what you want to do. It's your job to show up and play hard. That's your job. But if you're not bringing people to the well with you, if you're not taking them to the water and they're not walking with you hand to hand, you're not a leader. So right now the guys understand that leadership isn't just about showing up and do your job. This is your profession. Leading is bringing other people with you and teaching the young guys and teaching even the guys that's been here to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that everybody on this team right now has gravitated to that message, and it's been sprinkled down from the top down from our head coach. He's done an excellent job this offseason. Just like we all say, it's self-evaluations. He's self-evaluated some things that he could have did well, and he's implementing it with us, and we're feeding it and we're running into it, and the players love it. The energy, the effort, the attention to detail, understanding, you know, it's not about the plays that you should make, it's the plays that get you beaten in this game. And the guys thoroughly understand that we lost games because we beat ourselves. And we're trying to get that off of the radar so we give ourselves a chance to line up and be competitive every game that we in this year.
What are your expectations for Snead, and just kind of what have you seen from him when he's been here?
Anytime Legarius is in the meetings, perfect young man. He speaks. He asks the right questions. He's engaging. He talks to the young men. You know, he has a voice in the room. He has the experience. You know, the thing about him is just getting healthy. And right now he's still working through the process, but he's working diligently in the training room to get there. So when he gets on the field, you know, I expect high expectations from him. He does from himself. He's another guy that's very prideful. Last year didn't go the way he wanted because of injuries and because of, you know, maybe left a play or two here or there. He understands that. He has something to prove. Legarius got to this position because he has a chip on his shoulder. He was an underdog. He was a guy that has worked his way up, you know, from college to being a later round draft pick to starting to getting paid by another organization. You know, I have all the faith in the world on Legarius Snead. When he's out there on the field, he's a dominant force.
With so many new players in the wide receiver room, how do you see them challenging and sharpening your secondary?
Yeah, I mean, anytime it's competition there. You know, we drafted some guys, Lockett being here. You know, I've gone against him in numerous years as a slot receiver. Calvin continue to grow. So iron sharpens iron. And the better they are, the better we become. The better we are, the better they become. And the better both units and every unit on the team is, the better the team will be. And everything about us is about where the team is going. How do we make the team better? So it's been great to have the young guys there. It's been great bringing in the additions that we've had from a free agent standpoint. The team is getting better, and we're growing together. And if we're growing together and staying in the same direction, we'll be just fine.
All right. That's a lot to break down from Bones Fossil, from Dinard Wilson. We'll do all that when we come back. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Guys, if something's holding you back from performing at your best, it's time to do something about it with performance enhancement treatment packages from Edge Peptide. So whether you're in the gym or on the course with Edge Peptide and hormone therapy, you can show up stronger, feel better, recover faster, and stay in the game longer. You can boost your energy and build lean muscle mass and heal from those nagging injuries. And as an athlete myself, I know how those injuries can affect your game. So if you're struggling with joint pain or suffering from a recent injury or looking to recover faster after surgery, Edge has you covered. From peptide packages to PRP, stem cells, and high-field muscle stimulation, Edge is your exclusive Nashville area peptide specialist. So don't wait till summer to feel your best, and don't trust your health to some online pharmacy. And remember, at Edge, your consultation fee of $250 is waived with your initial order. And all you have to do is just go online and check them out at edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com, or you can just give them a call today at 615, of course, 724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. Man, there was a lot to get to in what Bones Fossil said, what Dinard Wilson said. There were some things that Dinard Wilson said that ties back to what Brian Callahan said in his press conference earlier. We got a lot I want to get to and a lot I want to react to. Hopefully we'll be able to cram it in on this show. But let's go to Brian, who wants to talk about the Tennessee Titans. Brian, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to, obviously I was just listening in the last 20 minutes or so when I got in the car, and I love that phrase, iron sharpens iron, man. Doing sports my whole life. I was a wrestler, and man, you get the only good teams that you see are the teams with the best backups. You got guys who are pushing people in the weight room and in the practice facilities, and you never see a good team without people who are able to come in and fill the spot behind them. One of the biggest parts of that is you got guys who are constantly trying to take your spot. They're pushing you. They're doing all these things. So I just wanted to see what y'all were thinking as far as the young guys and the backups and how they're going to be pushing, the guys who are kind of the presumed starters for this year. And y'all, I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I mean, right now, I have to say I'm very impressed with all the young guys. Xavier Restrepo today said in his press availability, they did a little media scrums and everything, that him, Cam Ward, Eilick Iomanner, Chimere DK, and Gunnar Helm, those 5 players all come in and start their day at 5 a.m. at the facility. Now, that means a lot because there are players like if you heard J.C. Latham, he didn't say Titans players, but the freedom that you were given as a young player is drastically different than what you had in college. And he said that if you wanted to show up 10 minutes before your 8 a.m. meetings, you could. If you wanted to leave right after your practice is over, you can. But it's those extra steps that you take separate the great ones. And I'm not saying it's going to mean that Xavier Restrepo makes the roster or he earns a starting spot. But without doing that stuff, you have zero chance, in my opinion.
Was he talking about that they were also there with the quarterback?
Yeah, he says Cam Ward, Gunnar Helm, Chimere DK, Eilick Iomanner, and Xavier Restrepo.
Well, I don't know what time practice actually starts or when the first meeting is. I'm assuming it's at 8 o'clock.
I would assume
I could be wrong. So guess what? That's 3 hours a day. Times that times 5. 15 hours extra. And you tell me you're not getting better than the next guy? See? So that's how you win. And that's how you become really good and in some cases great. So your talent's only going to take you so far, but you want to maximize how good the God-given gifts you were given to be the best of your ability.
Because even though you're one of 90,
success.
you're still 1% at your sport.
Yeah, it's just Jackson gets here 4 hours before any day that he needs to be here. And that adds up over time, including weekends.
Well, that allows him to play, Breath of the Wild.
That's why he's the best.
It's mainly just messing around with Joseph, but we get better.
Iron sharpens iron.
See, that's exactly it.
There we go.
So
brought it full circle from Brian's
exactly.
call.
So I get it, and I appreciate that. I was one of those guys. I don't know if I was getting there at 5. I was getting there at 6 actually. So So 5 was I was
5 is pretty early.
Yeah,
I woke up for the 6 a.m. show, and I woke up at like 4:30, and I was like, man, maybe I should have woke up at 4:45. Just that extra 15 minutes, I don't know. But that was rough. That was rough.
No, it's one thing to be up, but then it's another to be functioning and talking and be clear and concise on the air.
And being able to take in the information, too, because, that's early. You get you got the little sleep in your eyes. You're still adjusting and all that kind of stuff. So, It's tough.
Yeah.
So kudos to them.
Yeah.
Kudos to those 5. Yeah. Those are the only 5
you named.
Some other we don't know if there's more.
On defense, too. I'm sure some other guys, too. And I think that's part of the ilk of just the guys that they drafted. Yeah.
Even the undrafted guys that they've signed all have that kind of DNA. It was a big thing that they talked about was you have to love ball. And if you're not willing to put in the time to come in 3 hours early is what we think, 3 hours early.
Wow.
And get that work in, even if it's just mental reps, right? Maybe it's just them watching film.
Oh, yeah.
that is all still important. And we'll have Easton Freeze on tomorrow, who actually, they're using the same VR system that Jaden Daniels used for their quarterbacks this year. He actually took it on a test run, Blaine. He actually got to go and use it.
Oh, Easton did?
Easton did. So we're going to have him on, and we'll get his thoughts on that. But it's just another level, right? Because
is that with the camera on the head? Is that what that is?
So he has the VR glasses and the controllers, but it allows, and this is what Brian Callahan said in the interview, but it allows you to basically do an accelerated version of your film watching from the comfort of your couch. So if
like you're out there in the game,
yeah.
Okay.
So if Cam Ward was out there, one at home. Let's say, okay, he gets there at 5 a.m. He puts in his practice. He gets home at like 6 or 7, has his dinner, sits on the couch and is doing that. I wouldn't be surprised if he is just all ball all day. Like, that's a guy I would not be surprised is doing all that. But we'll talk more about that with Easton. A guy that I was a little surprised to hear about and the growth that he has shown, and I believe in his 7th year, if I'm not mistaken, and that's Arden Key. Arden has been a very passionate, vocal guy on the field. A lot of smack talk, a lot of energy. And Dinard Wilson today said that Arden has kind of dialed it back, but is taking more of a leadership position. He's just maturing. He's educating the guys in the room, telling them, here are my mistakes. Here's how I learned from them. Here's what you can do to prevent them. Stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm really surprised that Arden Key has turned into that guy. Has turned into from not, class clown, for lack of a better term, because I don't think he is that guy, but like the energetic, high energy guy that overly communicates is now the more dialed back, reserved vet. And I do wonder how that helps the room and the dynamic, but I did think that was an interesting way of Dinard Wilson kind of saying he's dialed back, but he's taking a leadership position. He's maturing, he's educating.
And I was wondering if that was actually a request or something that was done naturally.
Yeah.
At certain points, certain guys reach a certain part of their careers and they kind of turn into, that kind of leader, advice guy, veteran leadership type stuff. So I was just really interested in that. Or was it because of the new players coming in and he kind of talked about putting pressure on the guys that they signed and drafted that, they put a lot of pressure on the ball. But to your point that you've shown the whole time is that no sacks, but they put an emphasis on pressure, which I said they were always around the quarterback, which is the same thing. They do pressure, but didn't come up with the actual sacks. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out because pressure does speed up things, but it's nothing like a sack.
Yeah, because they talked about it. Someone, I think it was Nick Suss of the Tennessean, had asked Brian Callahan about it, and then he followed it up with Dinard Wilson talking about how these edge rushers are bigger. They're thicker guys. Like Draymond Jones is essentially a defensive lineman that became an edge rusher. Femi Oladejo, we've all seen Femi. He is massive. Arden Key is not as massive as everybody else, but even Ali Gay, rangy. Lorenzo Carter is a little bit thicker and bigger. And they talked about how this is a big man game when it comes to the edge. You can get all your sacks, but they're talking about collapsing the pocket. And the way they talk about collapsing the pocket almost makes it sound like they view it just as good as a sack. Like kind of like how we talk about your approach to being an NFL player and getting that second contract. The sacks will come is what I kind of feel like. How success will come, sacks will come. And right here, it looks like to me that they're really emphasizing, especially with Tavondre Sweat, don't forget him up the middle, they're emphasizing collapsing the A and the B gaps and collapsing the pocket and making stuff harder where maybe that may not create a sack, but maybe it creates a turnover. Maybe it creates a pass breakup. Maybe it creates a different opportunity other than a sack.
Yeah, so we'll be interested. He said he also, Dinard Wilson, that, it was wide open at the linebacker position as far as opposite of Barton. Barton showing a lot of leadership, and they kind of move him around, not just him, but everybody, so they can kind of see who can, best play other positions as well. He said he was changed a little bit in his play calling. I'm not sure what that really meant.
Yeah, nobody followed up with that, and I was really hoping someone would.
Yeah, that was big there, and I would love to give him an example of what he was meaning, because hindsight is always 20/20, right? So you go back and watch the film, even as a player, you go, dang, I should have done this, and this, and I could have got a 90% grade, and I'm still up there saying, I could have done this, and this, just because you lost. So obviously, you got to think that you needed to do more. Most guys just say, I did my job. So, so it's interesting that he said that, and I'd love to hear why he thought that and give us an example of where he felt like maybe he could have done a better job play calling. I don't know if that play calling meant game plan or play calling, because he said play calling.
And he did mention scheme before that, but then he went into it and like, man, why?
Yeah.
See, that's the questions that I wish that we had like a true football nerd in there to be able to, ask that question and follow up, because that's the question you follow up with is like, whoa.
Yeah. What do
you would change. You're making tweaks to your play calling. What does that actually mean? Are you talking about the scheme? What are you actually talking about?
Right.
Because to me, then I don't know what the question was, but they just brushed right over it and never went back to it. And I'm like, well, crap.
Yeah, that I thought that was really, really big, because and maybe he could be talking about scheme against the Packers or run game versus Commanders.
Yeah, because there are games like that we talk about on this show where we're like, man, I wish they would have taken a different approach with Malik Wilson. So they were trying to, throw the kitchen sink at him in terms of blitzing and all this stuff, and they made it so much easier for Malik Willis. And so maybe that's what he's talking about.
But see, and guess what, though? They had experience, and I get why he did it, because that's what they did at practicing with Flustrom, right? Yeah. So you think, I'm going to do that. Well, guess what? He also thought, this is what they're going to do. Help me, coach, to get by it. I'm making a one-read deal with you. We're going to get rid of the ball. They ain't going to never touch you. So, that maybe that's what he's talking about. Maybe not. So that was, I thought that was really cool. But one thing you hear about from all the coaches, I know we haven't got to Fossil yet.
There's so much I got to talk about Fossil.
Humble in that there are things that they could have done differently, and they're learning. This is all, new position coaches pretty much, and they all look back and say, dang, we should have maybe done this or that, and maybe that could have helped us win a couple games. So I love hearing that, because it's not always just the players. They're also a part of that too. So ultimately the players have to be the ones to execute, but the coaches have part of it too.
The inside linebacker spot that you're talking about, of course, you already said that it was wide open. He used the words extremely wide open, which I thought was interesting. But both him and Brian Callahan both echoed today the same sentiment. When the pads get on, they'll separate themselves. Not that we're going to have to separate them. They'll separate themselves. And I think that goes back to what Coach Mack said yesterday. It's very important for these players to practice with tempo and timing and speed, because when the pads come on, it doesn't feel any different for you. And it will be interesting to see how that battle shakes out, because I think that's a very under-discussed battle when it comes to this offseason is, does Cedric Gray make the jump that was expected of him last year because he is a fourth-round pick? Or is it really James Williams? I could see, you go back and watch some of those games with James Williams towards the end of the year where he is kind of being what Kenneth Murray was when he went out with injury. You kind of see him shooting those gaps and just playing with his hands, head on fire. Like, to me, I look at it and say, this isn't just Cedric Gray. It's Cedric Gray, James Williams, and Otis Reese. They said they got lots of depth back there.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of a Otis Reese guy. I feel like Cedric Gray is going to, and I'm looking back at 2 years, because right at the end of that season there, the last 4 games, he looked very impressive. A guy who was getting really comfortable being a converted safety to linebacker, and his speed showed in those games. And I don't think they knew much about him coming into the season. I think they try to be a clean slate and just kind of look at what practice is. So it'll be interesting to see if Gray is not the guy. I'm putting my money in. Just because he's a draft pick, I'm going to put my money on Otis Reese then, if being the other guy, if Gray's not the guy. And I don't know where they stand, but to me, Gray should be already the guy, be pushing just because he was a draft pick. And if he's not, then when they get the pads on, I'm putting my money on Otis.
And this is something that we have talked about numerous times on this show. But I did like hearing it from Dinard Wilson. He's like, I think our biggest problem was penalties. But he put those penalties on bad eyes, bad technique, out of position. We got to be better in run fits and tackling, but also shrinking the edges, make teams run in a phone booth. Like, all that stuff led to the penalties, and I think everybody thinks, oh, penalties just mean you're a dummy, from the player perspective or from the fan perspective. But really, it's about especially on defense, it's a little bit more like this is like, but even offensive line, when you're getting beat, what do you tend to do? You tend to grab to stop your guy, and that causes the penalty. So I love that the focus really has been this whole entire offseason with this new offensive system is trying to cut down on these penalties by going through technique. And I think that's the way to do it. And I'm sure that's how most coaches do it. But I just like hearing it from our coaches.
Yeah. I love hearing that. But the thing I took from that was that kept drives alive. And that then hence led to points. That's what he's saying there. So if we cut back on these, and you're not going to cut back on all of them, but let's just take half of them away. And some of it could have been his play calling, but some of it could have been like, you're just young, you're not looking where you need to be looking, having your feet where they need to be, your pre-snap, all of that. And so I think that's what he's hinting at, that, hey, we could have been even better, because he referenced towards the end of the season, so I'm going to say the last 6 games when we fell off, that meant the defense wasn't playing as good as it was earlier in the season. Then we started making a lot of errors and unforced errors, and it was all on us as players getting the penalties. And then he gave the reasons, as you mentioned. So I think he said that it led to more points, and they need to keep them to less points. So to me, they should be not only doing that, they should also be looking at, okay, can we play a little more zone? Because they were pressure driven the whole entire time. And when you have a young quarterback, you got to have vision on defense to get turnovers, because then you wanted to shorten the field for a young quarterback, whether it's Will Levis or Cam Ward. You want to have that kind of vision. You can't just get after quarterback if you don't have the team built the way you want it to be built. And that means you have to have great pass rushers. Nobody on this team is a great pass rusher.
Nope.
Now, they're good football players, NFL players, so you can have some elite corners. I think they're built to be man-to-man guys, but you got to get pressure to help them out, and this league is built on, helping the offense, and the penalties are going to go awry all over the place if
everybody wants to just rush 4, but this team I don't know if is built to rush just 4.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
But we got to see more from this team before we could say this can be a 4-man rush with simulated pressures and not a blitz team. Because to me, this looks to be built like a blitz heavy team, and it needs to be that. Before we get to Bones Fossil, it's a winning Wednesday. And be caller number 5 to win 2 tickets to see the Sounds host Gwinnett next Wednesday, June 4th at First Horizon Park. Break out your finest pair of blue jeans and overalls, and let's go boot scooting as we get ready to kick off CMA Fest. Enjoy a night filled with country music, country legends, and your favorite baseball team. 615-737-1045. Be caller number 5 to win 2 tickets to see the Sounds next Wednesday, June 4th. When we come back, we'll talk about what Bones Fossils had to say, because it was his first press conference, and there is a lot in there I want to get to. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop. Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Stinky, stinky, stinky. Is that what it was like the last time you were at an auto repair shop? Smelly, greasy old rags laying around, a countertop that you would not dare touch. Another thing that stinks is the repair shops that keep your car forever, and they're not honest, and they don't call you back when they say they will. Was that your last experience at a vehicle repair shop? Hey, it's Blaine Bishop to tell you about Eurofix, and they take the stink out of European auto repair. And at Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-rinse inspection with an estimate at every visit, and not high-pressure sales tactics. And at Eurofix, you also get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. You never pay dealer pricing. And they've been family-owned for 26 years. Located all over the state of Tennessee. And they have one in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. But always tell them Blaine Bishop sent you.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American made.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is a number. Jackson, how many votes did we have on the poll that you redid?
75.
So we doubled it. We did not pull in a lot of people on the vote. What was the rankings here?
I came in first with 52% of the vote.
Okay.
Blaine came in second with 28% of the vote.
Okay.
And you in very last place.
I don't understand how you won. I don't get it.
I think he had name recognition because when I look at yours, I go, oh, there's a lot of splash names in here, and that's how he did
I just don't think it's a very good flag football team. But.
It was very flashy.
Yeah.
Good job, Jackson. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We will,
even though you picked probably by far the worst defense out of the three of us.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But since you won, you get to buy us some more tacos.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. Give us some tacos down at the gas station.
Tacos,
or Mojo's. Give us some Mojo's tacos.
I would like to see my offense versus Blaine's defense. I think that's the best matchup.
Yeah. I think you would get whopped.
Oh, man. Great job. Great
all
job.
right. Bones Fossil.
Yeah.
Okay. He was kind of an interesting cat. I mean, it's like, I didn't really know, like, were his answers good?
Well, first he said a couple times, that's a good question, and I don't have an answer for you.
And then I'm like, well, then he turns around and gives you this answer. I'm like,
right.
So was it good? Let's just kind of first go through with this. I love that he's like about player evaluation. Not really. He watched a few games last year for the Tennessee Titans because it was about like, are you worried about the history of all the bad special teams here in Tennessee? And he goes, it's all about, for me, what it is right now and the players you got now. I don't want to watch too much tape and want to give them a clean slate and then work. And then the work they put in with my system is my evaluation. What did you think about that?
I think he was telling a fib. I think he watched a lot of film.
That's what I thought.
I think he's watching a lot of film because you can't determine where you want to put guys unless you do that.
Right.
But I get what he was trying to get at.
It kind of gave me like NPF PTSD.
Well, I get what he was getting at. Just because what you did last year, I put you in different positions doesn't mean that's who you are. So there's opportunity. So he was trying to also, he's speaking to the players that don't feel like just because you made a mistake last year or weren't in the right position that, my scheme and system that you'll be pretty good. So I think he takes a good, liking to make sure that he understands what players' limitations are. He talked about that a little bit in their strengths and weaknesses, and that's a sign of a good coach. So we could talk about all the things he was quirky a little bit about, but that was one thing that stood out, and he didn't hesitate at all. He thought he wanted his unit to be relentless and be like wild dogs or wild men, I think what he said.
Relentless with a little wild man in it.
Yeah, of course. When your term we used to use is controlled rage, you have to be somewhat a little kooky to be on special teams, but you also have to be a dog where you're running around, but you get back to your responsibilities and understand where you're supposed to be when you land at the last spot when the guy returning the kick. So that's a lot of communication and understanding. But he said players come in all shapes and sizes, so it doesn't matter about positions.
Because he was asked about core traits, right? Yeah. And he says, like, to me, he used to have a list, is what he said. He says, I used to have a list, but over the years I've learned that there is no list because you got big players that don't play fast. You got small players that play bigger than they are. Everybody has weaknesses, and it's all players can come in all shapes and sizes, like you just said, and it's his job to figure out the strengths and match them up and put them in position to succeed based on the matchups. And he goes, because everyone has weaknesses. Sounds like you.
Sound like you heard it.
Listen, it sounds like you. And throughout this whole thing.
Every player it has one. And you can find it. It's just a matter of if you can take advantage of it. Do you have enough talent to take advantage of it or get him to do it?
Yeah.
One of the two. So whether you're a great pass rusher or a great pass blocker. Yeah, they all have weaknesses, sometimes. And a lot of NFL players will say this. It wasn't the elite players that gave me issue. It was a random guy that was just a good player. Nobody would have known. He probably played 5 years. He gave me the most problem. I bet you 70% of players will say that.
Yeah.
Because they get up for that one. But the guy I got this guy. He's not. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, man, that guy was pretty good. Yeah, and it'd be like this good player, nobody forget about him. He's retired, and nobody. But he could say, "Hey, man, I gave that dude all they got."
Yeah,
and that's who I was, and I knew I could play with the best. And those are the type of players you better be aware of. I think the other thing that he said, well, we could talk about a little bit. He said I came there, how he got recruited a little bit there.
I thought that was
Callahan.
interesting. He got Coach Callahan recruited him, and professionally, personally, this was the right spot for him.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest thing out of everything was he said, I've learned over time never to try to force a big play.
Yep.
Let the players have freedom and make them not afraid. And this is a big deal for coaches, not to be afraid to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I always talk about play free. That's what I'm talking about. Some coaches overcoach all the time that you'll say, dang it, I don't want to make a mistake, so I'm not going to go for where there's an opportunity, even if the opportunity isn't given to me. A good example of that on special team is, hey, I've seen on film that this guy just takes off and runs, and he's supposed to be the not personal protector, but the end guy on the edge back. He just takes off. Well, I can just rush. My responsibility is to be the first guy on the wave on the block. I can go and just rush the the punter, and block it. Well, most guys be like, hey, I'm not supposed to block this play. That's not my play. So you have the freedom to then go and make the play without fearing of making a mistake. That's what I'm talking about. So that shows you an experienced special team, because as we all know, he is. But when you talk like that, you understand that. That's like saying, hey, man, you got to run down your lane. And some coaches be like, you need to run down this lane straight. Well, guess what? I did that one time, and I got ear-hold on special team.
Yeah.
No talk, real talk right here. My rookie year. And guess what I did? I started weaving and ducking and dodging that second game. And then I said, long as I end up where I need to be, I don't have to worry about running a freaking straight line.
Right.
Because if not, I'm going to get ear-hold again. Yeah. And that didn't feel good. But trust me, I was like, where did that guy come from? I didn't even see him. He did a cross block. So that's what he's referencing. Give freedom to then run, but be at your destination at the end.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a responsibility.
I don't know. I was just thinking, for whatever reason, getting ear hold, and it just sent shivers down my spine.
Oh, this was in preseason. I'll never forget it.
But I was thinking head to head without, a helmet on. It just you know how you kind of feel like something in your teeth sometimes? Like, that's what it felt like.
I got ear hold so bad in the Alamo Dome my rookie year, my first preseason game. I'm like, I'm going to be the first one down. I know I'm about to smash somebody. I'm real tall, and I was the first one down there. Yeah. I was the first one to get ear hold and cross block. Boom. I thought I tore my ACL.
His exact wording was, can't ever force the big play on special teams because more often than not it backfires. Players have to be allowed / encouraged, like you said, an element of freedom without fear of consequence were his exact words. Everything you were just talking about. Just real quick, I wanted to go to what he had to say about the returners. He said it was the returner's ability to see it all unfold and a kick returner's ability for ball tracking and courage. And how he already said it was already different than what it was last year. You don't just want a big old plodding running back that breaks tackles. That's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, because Khalil Mullins kind of fits that build of what he's not necessarily looking for, but maybe there is an element of courage to his game. But what did you think about the ability to track and catch the football for the punt returner, the returner's ability to see it all unfold, because he named Turpin?
I love that, because I always take it back to my own experience. I was a punt returner really good in high school. And when he talks about Turpin, what he's saying is players are supposed to be returned, but somehow, some way, the punt returner let his instinct take over and said, oh, if I slash and cut back, I can take it to the house and just run with that thing. So it's not always about the design of the play. It's about the actual returner and what he feels and what he's seen through film or after his first one or two times returning and seeing how they're kind of attacking him and approaching him as a returner. It's somewhat of a field thing and experience.
Well, because he even said, like, sometimes the hole, you have to be it's something that you can't teach.
Right.
You just see it. And he talked about how I can design all these plays, but sometimes the hole is not where we thought it was
like
going to be.
It's like playing running back, right? Just think about that.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
yeah.
It's just like that. That's exactly how the returner is. They become a running back just in the open field and have a lot more freedom. So some guys just have a knack for it. Sometimes you're just looking for the guy who will secure the catch and not just being a great runner after that. So he's dealt with, I'm sure, with him bouncing around the league and being a really proven special teams guy. He's probably have some outstanding.
It was really some interesting stuff. We'll get more to it tomorrow. We'll also have Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports talk about the virtual reality headset that Cam Ward is using. 3HL's up next, and they're going to have Tim Corbin on today, Vanderbilt baseball head coach. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. And in the meantime,
and in between time, Jackson.
Peace.